Good evening, ghouls and gals, freaks and creeps, and welcome to the TerrorZona podcast, where we'll be talking about everything from the paranormal, the strange, the haunted, the occult, murder mysteries, true crimes, and everything in between. Everything to satisfy your spine tingling and gut wrenching needs. So, in today's episode, folks, we're taking it all the way back. We're going to the origins of TerrorZona. We're going to talk about our own personal paranormal experiences. This is kind of what I guess you can say kicked off the fascination and the drive to want to do this.
This is what started our interest in wanting to know about the paranormal and ghosts and spirits.
Yep. So it was definitely a little weird coming up with this story. I mean, we talk a lot about other people's, but we've kind of grown to, I guess, shelter our own stories because a lot of the time nobody believes us anyway or believes anybody who really says stuff about the paranormal. They're bullshitters, attention seekers, or oh,
Yeah,
you
I've
just made
had
that up.
people look at me when I tell them what had happened or what I experienced. They always go, "For real?" or "You're making it up, right?" And I'm like, "No, this is what happened." So sometimes you tend to keep those things, your personal experiences, to yourselves because people look at you and think that you're full of it or you're just making stuff up as you go along.
Yeah, couple soda short of a six pack. So, do you want to go first, Eric, and tell your stories, or would you rather I go first?
I can go first.
All right, go ahead.
I have three experiences that got me into wanting to learn about the paranormal. The first one, I was probably about 13, and we were traveling from Phoenix to Fresno, where I was living at the time. And it was my father, my brother, and a friend of ours. And we're, driving down the highway, and to pass the time, because we were starting to get a little bored, my dad started to tell us old folklore and ghost stories and things that he had heard when he was younger. And, you know, he'd been doing this for, a couple hours. He's been telling us different things and, even experiences that he had. And, now we're all kind of on the edges of our seats and we're listening to his stories and starting to get a little scared. And out of nowhere, it looks like a lady had floated past the side of the window. And at the same time, all of us said the same thing. Did you guys see that? So, of course, everybody's freaking out. We're all like, oh my God, did you see that? And what was that? Dad, did what is that? And he's like, I don't know. But what was crazy about it is that when I looked behind out the back window, you could still see this lady like floating as other cars were passing by her. So that was the first time I ever experienced something paranormal.
That's crazy.
And the crazy thing is about it is that I wasn't the only one that saw it. So I can say that, I wasn't the only one. There was three other people that saw it as well. Okay. Did you want to go ahead and tell one, Seb, or?
Well, go ahead and we'll do all yours, and then I'll hit up with mine.
So the second time I had an experience with the paranormal was I was still 13. It was when we were living in Fresno, and I had a friend's house that I used to go and hang out with all the time. And one day I go after school and we're hanging out and stuff, and before you know it, I lost track of time and it had gotten kind of late. So, I was like, well, hey, I gotta go. So I used to walk to and from his house. So I was on my way home walking, and I thought I heard a little girl crying, which was kind of weird because, there wasn't a whole lot of people out there. So I'm walking and I can hear, as I'm getting closer, there's a canal that you had to pass heading towards my home. And as I was getting closer to the canal, the sounds of the cries were getting louder. So I was just like, maybe you're just hearing things. But as I got close to the canal, the crying got really loud. So I turned and looked, and it looked like there was a little girl squatting down by the canal. So I was kind of scared because as late it was, and it's kind of dark. I could just imagine how afraid she was. So I wanted to see if she was okay. So I walked over to her and I said, hey, are you okay? And when she turned to look up at me, she had no face, no eye sockets, no nose, no lips, no nothing. Just looked like just skin. And as soon as I saw this, I just took off running. Um, I never seen the little girl again, going back and forth to my friend's house. And even if I kind of left late, I never saw her again. And the final time, and this was probably the one that scared me the most and got me to really want to get into the paranormal, is we had moved back to Arizona, and I shared a room with my younger brother. And one night, my younger sister and I had been watching scary movies. So after the scary movies were over and we decided we were going to go lay down, she was saying that she was scared and she didn't want to sleep in her room. So I told her that she could lay on the bed with me, just lay by the wall, and I would lay by the door. And on this particular night, my brother that I shared the room with, he had went to spend the night at a friend's house. So, we lay down, been in the room for a little bit, and the next thing you know, I feel like somebody's watching me. So I just keep my eyes closed because I'm just like, it's probably nothing. It's just from watching the scary movies or whatever. But I could not get the feeling of being watched to go away. So I opened my eyes, and when I did, it looked like there was somebody sitting on the edge of the bed. So I assumed it was my brother had come back because I'm still kind of half asleep. So when I see this figure sitting on the bed, I say, "Oh, hey, let me scoot over." So I scoot over, and they just continue to sit at the edge of the bed. So thinking it's my brother, I ask him, "Hey, I didn't, when did you get back?" He said nothing. So because he didn't answer me for a second time, I said, "Hey, what's up?" And when I did that, the figure leaned in, and when it did, I could see the face. And the face looked like a little boy, but his mouth was real wide, and he had teeth and a nose like a dog. I was so scared, I just closed my eyes and just kept them closed. That was probably the most terrifying thing that I had ever seen. I saw it one other time afterwards, but after the second time, I never saw him again. And to this day, I've never seen it again. But it's weird. I had was watching something on YouTube, and they were talking about old folklore and legend. And there's a legend from England, I believe, of dog-faced people. So it kind of put a little um, legitimacy to what I had seen, because it's the legend goes back, a few centuries.
Yeah, what's even better about this story is our other brother, because I'm actually the youngest brother. So my big brother, um, him and a bunch of his friends saw the same thing, and some of the stuff they were telling me about it is, man, it's absolutely just horrifying the way my brother described this. So the second time that, if I think this is the first time our brother sees it, right?
Yeah, we're in the room together. That's the second time I saw it.
So they're in high school, so they're studying, doing their homework and stuff, and our brother keeps looking up at the roof, looking at his work, looking up at the roof, looking at his work. So our brother's like, Eric, Eric, and he's like, I know, just don't say anything. From the way our brother describes it, he's sitting in the top corner of the ceiling. So his butt would basically be flat to the wall where the corner meets, and his back is against the ceiling. Just sitting there, just smiling at them and watching them do their homework. So our brother tells some of his friends about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, right, nah, nah. He's like, all right, we'll spend the night. Let's find out. So, sure as hell, who should show up? And, yeah, we made believers out of a lot of people that night.
Yeah. It's crazy because we talked about it for years after it had happened.
Yeah, it's so crazy because a lot of the friends that they've seen this have basically grown up and been like my older brothers. So these are people I've seen my entire life, and they even bring this story up to me. So it was funny growing as a little kid, hearing this crazy story, and now that I have my own experiences, it just like it blows you away that something just it completely defies the laws of reality. I mean, one, he's defying gravity itself, and then like how can you wrap your mind around something like that?
Well, I mean, just the sheer description of it alone would make people think that you're kind of crazy, or you just got a really vivid imagination. But I mean, I know what I saw.
Yeah, that's
And
what I was
it's
getting at.
and it's that's why in the beginning we said sometimes you just hold your personal experiences to yourself, because like you said, everybody was like, oh yeah, right, sure, whatever.
Because when you describe something like,
Basically a little boy with a dog face. So we basically called it the dog face boy.
yeah,
That was the best and easiest way to explain it.
even somebody trying to lie and come up with a good story, like it at least takes a couple seconds to try and put something kind of congruent together to at least lie. If you're gonna lie, commit to the bit. Like even for just throwing something together, who the hell would think about putting something that dramatic together?
And why would I involve saying I thought it was my brother? I would have just said, oh man, you know what I saw this.
Yeah, because if you cut out all the loose ends, it's just your word against, yours.
Yeah.
So,
But like I said, it adds legitimacy to it because I wasn't the only one that saw it.
yeah, and I never even heard the how this thing originated from, you said Britain
like
or England
England.
somewhere.
Yeah.
See, I've never even heard of it.
I just, like I said, I was just watching a thing about, 25, legends and folklore, and one of those things like on YouTube, and it just happened to be one of them.
The one thing I can remember, some years ago, um, I believe I was living with our dad at the time. We were watching it. I don't remember if it was called Paranormal Witness or Paranormal Encounters. It just debuted on Sci-Fi. It was the very first episode. There was a story, something very similar to yours, about the little girl with no face. It was uh, this mother and her daughter saw a little girl, probably between 8, maybe 12, if they had to guess. Maybe her oldest 15. They saw her just like crying in the on the side of the road or like a ditch. They went to walk over there to her, and as she just turned around and looked at them because they left their headlights on, and they were just completely flat, just flesh, no eye sockets, nothing to show any kind of facial features, just flat, smooth skin.
That's basically what I saw. So, like I said, once again, to hear that other people had seen these things kind of helps you. I don't want to say cope, but you don't feel like, okay, well, it's my, like you said, my word against people doubting me. You know, there's references you can go back to and say, well, these people said they seen something similar, so it's not just me saying it; it's somebody else as well.
It's nice to find the solace in somebody else who's encountered something
Similar.
scary and out of the ordinary. I have about maybe 3 personal experiences, maybe 4 if you can even call it a fourth one. But I think everything started for me when I was relatively little, probably like 7, 8 years old. So I mean, I'm not exactly like kid with the crazy imagination, but I always was able to. I don't want to call them spirits. I don't really want to call them ghosts either, but essentially that's what they were. And the best way I can describe it was kind of like the Sixth Sense, but not to that extremes. Because I would see people and I would ask, I'm like, "You guys see them, right?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" So people would just walk around, and this person could look and look around, and like he could tell that nobody could see him, but he would look at me like, "I know you can see me," type thing. And that happened for years. And they would just show up randomly. It happened off and on through most of my life till I was about probably 15 or so. And now that I'm older and I understand what the hell I was looking at, now I don't really see spirits in the sense where I can look and tell that they look like people anymore. The best way I can describe them is if you were to take a silhouette, and there were these weird things back in the early 90s. They were like little black picture frames with colored water and sand. And you would just move it and it would look like desert scapes. Well, that's kind of how I see them now, but they look like black, moving, rippling water is the best way I can describe how I can still see spirits in a sense. And I know a lot of people like, oh, if you see black spirits, they're negative. Well, that's not necessarily true because even if I see them, they're I've seen like little children's spirits, never harmful, but even to this day, I can still see them like that. I can still get really, I guess, awkward feelings when things just feel off, especially when I go to a place where I know that there's like bad mojo. That's been something I just can't get rid of. Um, my second paranormal incident, uh, incident is I was living with my mom and my dad. I'm probably like 12, 13 years old, I guess. We lived in these apartments, and the way the apartments were was my window overlooked the entire back of the parking lot. So for the longest time, I would always hear these two little girls. They were twins. They were always playing out there, but they just kind of looked odd, like just out of place. Like they didn't belong in the time period. You know, they kind of wore dresses that looked like Alice from like Alice in Wonderland, but not that old. Almost like they were just wearing like a retro throwback dress kind of thing. And it's like nobody else seemed to see them. I'm like, man, like these kids are out all day and all night. And I used to stay up all the time. I'm a very hardcore gamer, so I was always up gaming, even as a kid. I could hear them outside constantly, all night, playing, bouncing their stupid ball. So finally, one day, I just opened up my window and I'm like, hey, can you mind like shutting the hell up? Like, there are some people who do want to either sleep or not hear you guys out here playing hopscotch. So I slammed my window and then I'd never seen them after that. But for weeks, and I mean weeks, I could hear them, but I would never see them. But it always sounded like the sound was in my room, and I could never, ever get it to stop. So after a while, my room was, it always had this weird feeling in it. I would never sleep in that room. I would stay up basically until the sun came up and would sleep during the day. For my birthday, around that time, my dad gave me the money to go and get me a new dog. So we had this puppy, great dog. She was fine everywhere in the house, never in my room. I would have to lock the door and basically barricade her in there to have her stay with me because she didn't even like the room. There were times in that apartment we would see, we have those old like tap lights where you tap them and it goes from dimmer, dimmer to, and then it shuts off. Occasionally that would just go on and off. So after we eventually moved out, I didn't really experience anything kind of super weird or crazy for the longest time. So fast forward now some years. This is the day the Cardinals are playing the Steelers. I'll never forget because it was the Super Bowl. My cousin, my nephew, went with us because we were going to go and get pizzas and stuff for the Super Bowl. Well, we lived in Buckeye, and I believe the road, it's either Jackrabbit Trail or something. I forgot what the name of it was. Well, on both sides, it's cornfields. So we get all the pizzas and everything. We're heading on our way back, and we can see it would be the passenger side door. So it's on my right because I'm on the passenger seat. We see the corn like moving and rustling. It looks like something's getting ready to come out of the cornfield. So next thing you know, we see this huge black dog. I mean, this dog has to be close to 4 feet, 5 feet on all fours. I mean, this thing looks like a bear. It doesn't even really look like a dog. But we looked like we were going to hit it. So real quick, I tell Mom, I'm like, hey, you need to swerve so we don't hit this dog. So we turn, and the car kind of does like a half circle, and we just stop in the middle of the road. And we're like, well, where is it? We didn't hit it, did we? I'm like, no, because if we would have hit it, we'd have blew it all over the place. Like, that dog is gone if we hit it. So everybody gets out, whip out the phone flashlights, because, you know, in this day and age, nobody carries a real flashlight. So we're looking around, not a single paw print, no body, no blood on the car, nothing. So everybody just like doesn't even know what to say. We nobody wants to say anything. And me being me, I'm like, I know this is stupid, but do you guys remember Supernatural, that TV show? And my nephew's a big Supernatural guy. He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, do you think that was a hellhound? He's like, as stupid as that sounds, dude, that's like the most feasible answer I can give you. I'm like, dude, that was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So we get to our house and we're pulling everything out of the car. So when I close my door, there's a paw print on the car. But what's weird about the paw print, it's almost like a human were to like flatten their hand to like push against something. That's how the paw print looked. But that's not possible. Because if a dog did that, it would have broke its paw. But there was just one lone paw print and it was on my door. So that was definitely my major, major eye opener to something otherworldly. My last experience is now, fast forward, I'm in my early 20s now, like 24, 23 years old. I lived in another apartment with just my mom. Well, I made friends in the apartment complex. They lived just right across the way from me. So one night we all go out drinking. You know, we're just kind of hanging out. So I decide to call it a night kind of early. I'm like, you know, guys, look, I'm a little more than drunk. I just want to go home. I'm gonna lay down. Plus, I gotta climb upstairs, and I don't feel like stumbling my drunken ass upstairs and falling and getting hurt. So I'm so tired, mind you. I'm still in my boots, everything. Just lay down flat on the bed. Well, my bed is facing the wall, and where I sleep, my back is completely facing the opposite side of the room. So I could just turn and put my feet down to get off my bed. You know. So I'm laying down and it feels like somebody kind of cuddles up to me. I could feel how warm that person's body was. They were a little shorter than me, but the weirdest part is I'm laying on the edge of my bed. So for somebody to lay behind me and like cuddle and caress me, my bed would have had to have stretched out a good 3-4 feet to accommodate the size of another person. So I just laid there and I'm like, okay, it's because you're drunk or you're a little too tired. Well, I close my eyes and I feel my blanket like kind of go over me, like someone's trying to cover me up and lay their arm on my chest. As soon as I felt that, I'm like, nope, I'm done with this. I need to get up. So I stayed up the rest of the night, hung over and just not willing to go to sleep. So, yeah, that definitely shook me up.
So, you know, if you ever, see a shadow, you think you hear something, uh, you feel like you're not alone in the room, you just get that heebie jeebie feeling, don't always dismiss it because it could be something more there than what you realize.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to try to figure it out and don't, and share your stories with people.
Yeah. I know a lot of people say don't engage spirits, but it's more often than not what people call earthbound spirits, so ghost. They normally want attention because they have something they're trying to tell you, rather it's bad omens or how to help them cross over, whatever. Ghosts are something completely different from, inhuman spirits and then, you know, demons. They're all something entirely different. So, go ahead, dude.
Uh, and, not all spirits are bad. You know, like how Sebastian described how he sees them, and just because he says they're black doesn't mean they're bad. So that's why I would say if you feel like it's bad, then maybe you shouldn't get involved or engage with it. But sometimes it is just somebody from the other side trying to reach out.
Yeah, pretty unique story. Our mom actually said we could tell this story over the for the podcast. My aunt and my uncle have been separated since forever, since I was a little kid. Well, me and one of my cousins that I'm particularly very close to, growing up, we weren't close, like, at all. We actually didn't really even like each other. But as a weird twist of fate, we ended up becoming like super great buddies. We were at each other's house basically every other summer. I would stay my whole summer there, or he'd stay at my house. So I started to get close to my uncle again. So he hasn't seen me since I was probably a baby. And now I'm probably 13, maybe even 15 years old. We're heading out to Fountain Hills, and my uncle's like, "So, did your mom ever tell you the story?" I'm like, "What story?" He's like, "The one where we saw your grandma." And I'm like, "Okay." I didn't know the grandma he's talking about is my great grandma, because my grandmother at that time was still alive. So I'm like, "What story about my grandma?" And he's like, "Well, not your grandma, like your great grandma. It would have been your mom's grandma." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "No, why?" He's like, "Well, let's wait till we get to the house and then we'll tell you." So I'm like, "Okay." So we're sitting around the table, we're just, BSing around. So I reminded him about this story. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." So one day your mom was reading my fortune with a deck of regular playing cards, and almost majority of what she predicted through the cards has already kind of come true, minus a few differences, but almost to the letter what happened. And he goes, "Wow, Bev, that's crazy. Like, who taught you how to do this?" She's like, "Well, my grandma taught me how to do it." And they were kind of talking a lot about my grandma. And my uncle goes, "Well, what did she look like, just out of curiosity?" She goes, "Well, she had all black hair except for one silver stripe up the middle. She was kind of an older lady and wore like the old cat eye looking glasses, had the little chain that, most old ladies have. Yeah, she was kind of short." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Anything else?" And she goes, "Yeah, this and this." And he goes, "So you mean just like that?" Well, my mom was actually facing the opposite way. So my mom actually has to turn around and completely turn her head. Her and my uncle saw my great grandma standing there watching them read the fortune with the cards. And my mom goes, "Yup, exactly like that." And they said they could sit there and still like turn around and could see her standing there until they got up and left the room.
Yeah, I remember that story. I remember mom telling us. Um, I think my mom has somewhat of a gift.
It would make a lot of sense.
She's she she feels things and sees things, knows things that she shouldn't.
Yeah, that's another story that I remember because after you brought that up, we actually used to live on 71st Ave in Thomas. So, way back in the day, where the Target used to be, oh, is it still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've changed a lot of that place. So I kind of forgot. But where the Target is, it's an alleyway, and it cuts through the entire shopping plaza right off to the main road. So a lot of the time, we just kind of cut through the alleyway because it saves us all the time of walking to the main road to get to Walmart or get to Desert Sky Mall or Westridge Mall, whatever it is now.
Behind the buildings.
So for some odd reason, unbeknownst to us, it's my cousin, my mom, my sister-in-law, and I believe she had my niece at the time. And my mom just said, no, we're not going through the alley. We're like, why? We came that way. It's getting late. We still got to make dinner. Like, nobody wants to be out anymore. We're tired. And my mom just kept on, no. So we didn't really want to listen. We started to make the walk in there. And my mom grabs us and says, if you go back there, we're going to regret it. We're taking the long way. Let's just suck it up for today. So we're like, all right, whatever. So nobody really wants to just kind of deal with the BS. We just take the main road and go home. The next day, we find out that a woman got stabbed and, murdered back there. And it would have been about 15 minutes after we started walking through the main road. So if we would have took it, it could have been any one of us. So our mom is definitely in tuned with a lot of things. It's kind of spooky, really. So, yeah, that's basically the origins of TerrorZona.
And why we love the paranormal so much.
It started to become a big part of our lives, and it kind of shaped us too as we got older. We experienced some other stuff here and there, but yeah, these are the things that definitely showed us that there's something out there other than just the norm.
Yeah, and let you guys understand and know that we just don't do this for the sake of doing it. We do it because this is something we're really into, something we enjoy doing. And we enjoy sharing it with you guys.
Yeah. So with that, folks, we definitely want to open up another episode of the show for just you guys. If you guys feel comfortable enough to tell us your paranormal stories, we would love to hear it. We don't care if it's aliens, UFOs, bizarre sightings, cryptids, ghosts.
Anything and everything.
So, anything else, Eric?
Just if you have something you'd like to share or have us read over an episode, put it in the comments.
Yep. Or you can go to the TerrorZona Facebook page. We're going to try and start being a little bit more frequent with the drops. Things have always just kind of, we hit snags here and there, and then doing research for some of the longer episodes, there's a lot to comb through. So we try to be as speedy as possible, but give you guys good quality content. So thanks for listening to us, folks. We hope you enjoyed, sharing what we had to share. So with that being said, good fright and good night, folks.